I turn to a man who took charge of a professional soccer club 3 months ago and today has good reason to be having second thoughts. His name is Mike Watterson, and since he became chairman of Derby County, the club has rarely been out of the headlines. They've just been fined £10,000 for poaching Bradford City's manager. Now Bradford are claiming £200,000 compensation, and if they win their claim, Derby will be bankrupt. But the problems didn't start there. A few days before, Chelsea supporters did £10,000 worth of damage to Derby's ground after losing in the FA Cup. All this comes just a fortnight after £20,000 worth of damage was done by supporters of Leeds United. They ripped up seats and threw them onto the pitch. Today the Football Association spent the day at Derby investigating the disturbance. The FA say they want to stamp out this new spate of football violence as soon as possible. But while Derby clear up their ground, their new chairman says as soon as possible may not be soon enough for him. His team play at Chelsea tomorrow and he's worried that Derby fans will cause trouble there in retaliation for last week. If they do, he says he'll resign.
If there is any trouble with Derby fans, that would be the last straw for me, because how can I turn around and say that Chelsea fans are hooligans, Leeds fans are hooligans, or whatever, or their hooligan element, when we ourselves have a lot of mess to clear up? If we go down there and prove that we are just as bad as the people who did all the damage to our ground, then we're no better than they are, and I want no part of it.
Soccer 6, football for all the family, is the league's answer to the hooligan element and declining gates. It was screened on television for the first time last week. The 14,000 who went to see this variation of the sport won't cover the cost. The money comes from sponsorship. But that could point the way out of the current mess of football finance. Just after the war, 40 million people a season went to football matches. Now it's down to 20 million. That drastic drop in gate money has stretched clubs to breaking point. Last year, 3 clubs went broke. This year, the vast majority are making heavy losses. But could they handle their finances better?
I don't think enough emphasis is paid on to financial control at clubs. And I think it all boils back to the problem of the lotteries and when they were successful, and the transfer fees, and even third division clubs paying £150,000 and £200,000 for a player, with average attendances of about 5,000. To me, that is just absolute financial suicide.
Do you expect to make any money out of football? You are a businessman.
Yeah, as I said, I do this for fun. No, you can't make money out of football.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the champions of the North American Soccer League, the Cosmos.
In the United States, football comes consumer packaged, with pre-match entertainment, all-seater stadiums, bright lights, big stars. Football is razzmatazz. With the recession, some American clubs have come up against money problems. But it's still all a far cry from the drabness of the traditional British football ground. Derby County were used to gates of well over 30,000 when they were in the First Division a few years ago. Now they average 10 to 11,000. So why are fans staying away?
People today generally are much harder to please than they were 20 years ago. I think there is so much more happening now. There is so much more entertainment. You've got the big television factor that perhaps 20, 25, 30 years ago you didn't have.
Isn't it true that football hasn't moved with the times? It hasn't changed?
Oh, how can you change a basic game? I mean, basically the game is football.
Excuse me, can you tell me, do you ever go to football on a Saturday afternoon?
No, boring. I've gone occasionally to some good matches. You see a good, decent match now and again, it's okay. But basically, it's a trouble, I would say.
Do you ever go to football on a Saturday afternoon?
No.
Why not?
Too expensive.
If you go back years ago, or say about 10 years ago, it was all sort of men in cloth caps and what have you trudging down to the match, and and it was a decent match. There was no trouble, no police needed then.
So what would you do on a Saturday afternoon?
Up about 1 o'clock and go up chat and walk around, that's about it.
There's nothing that would attract me to go to a football match, I just don't like football.
Did you go to football on a Saturday afternoon?
Yes.
Are you a regular supporter?
No, I'm a police officer.
Well, here's hoping he's not kept too busy tomorrow. The FA Commission have just finished their deliberations at Derby, just over an hour ago. They said both clubs were guilty to some degree, but they delayed imposing any punishment. That, apparently, will come next week. But is hooliganism the only reason for the decline of football? Or does the business side have to take a share of the blame? Is it too expensive in these hard times? Or perhaps has it just become too boring?